Jerry's been sending me so much stuff.
Adam just rolled up,
He did roll up?
Yep.
Okay,
So he's still living.
front and center.
Oh, yeah, he was in the store the other day.
literally.
It's just been a couple of days that nobody's gotten an email.
I did. I got several this week.
Is all of us?
Did you?
You have something.
What's that?
Justin's
all of us?
online. First time.
Justin's online.
That one.
Wales would probably,
Still there.
is that Wales?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah,
I really need to use the mirror more.
a frantic,
Oh, me too. Let me see. Oh, I just clicked on the link.
So she beat Adam in.
It was probably
What
Brandon.
was the trick? Maybe bread, that was the last thing I had.
okay, I have 6 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started. If everyone would please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Christie, could you take roll call, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
Pappenfort,
Here.
Stevens,
Here.
Fontana,
Here.
Martin,
She's walking in.
Okay.
See her right there.
Critelli,
Present.
Nacarado, absent,
Ooh.
Mayor Shore,
Here.
a quorum is present.
Great. Okay, and that takes us to the consent agenda. Any questions or comments on that this evening?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask to have item 6 brought to new business, please.
Great. We will take that and we'll address that towards the end of the meeting. I'll bring that to item number 14. Anything else on the consent agenda this evening?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda, number 1 through 5.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Pappenfort, seconded by Councilmember Fontana. And the motion is to combine and approve items 1 through 5 on the consent agenda and to take item number 6 to new business. Further discussion?
Stevens,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Fontana,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Martin. Yes. Motion passed.
Okay, and that brings us to citizen comment. And I'll go.
Oh, I can go.
I get it.
Okay.
He's on the move already.
Hey,
Something
who
bit me.
hesitates loses.
I can walk now.
First up, we have.
That's a mosquito
I was
bite.
trying to pull the agenda up.
Hey guys, I'm Walt Harder. With the development of the Confluent Park neighborhood, we were given 8 short-term rental licenses to issue within the development, subject to Chapter 6, Article 6 of the code. As it turns out, a section of our development was given the underlying zone district of R3, which puts this section at the mercy of the May-only issuance of new STR licenses. Why licenses are only issued in May, I don't understand, but since our 8 licenses were already granted, it seems we should be able to issue them at any time. We are trying to close on the purchase of one of our new condos and used an STR license as an inducement for that purchase, but have been denied the ability to do so because of this May rule. I contend that since our licenses already exist, they should not be subject to the May-only issuance, and I respectfully request that you consider my petition to allow us to issue these existing licenses at any time during the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and next up, we have Adam Martinez.
Thank you and good evening. I have 2 issues I would like to talk about. The first issue is I seen trash along Mrs. Adelman's place, and I was wondering when the city was going to be on top of it, because she's bringing her friends back and there's more trash in that area. There's starting to be more people. I know that you guys were talked to by Mrs. Clark's attorney, and I would like, in essence, that trash being taken care of, and I would like to know what is the city doing about foreclosing on that property. And then the second point I want to bring up is the street closures. I had, in essence, spoke to a number of people who have signed my petition. One lady told me, I haven't been downtown in 6 years due to the street closures, and she was wondering why, in essence, why certain people of Salida is being singled out. I think all of you need to look directly in the mirror and decide, in essence, if you're going to care about this community and show caring and compassion. And it seems to me like you guys don't like the veterans, because it was Memorial Day. There was nothing planned for the veterans. You don't like the veterans, the handicapped, the disabled, the people with autism. And I spoke with Mrs. Martin last week, and she didn't address my concerns because the problem is still there with the street closures. I think a lot of business owners are suffering, and I think that that people cannot make an honest living in Salida when the streets are closed. It is affecting all of the businesses, and you guys, in essence, don't want to compromise with this community. You guys just want to be selfish and just, in essence, and just do what's best for part of the community. You need to represent all the people of this community, not just what you guys want. And if you're going to do the job, in essence, do it all the way around, not just halfway. And listen to the people. Mrs. Martin said, we get our public comment through citizen participation. We get it through talking to people. We get it through the newspaper. What a bullshitty way to do things. And I think that you guys, in essence, need to govern like leaders if you want in essence, people's trust. If you want people to trust you guys, right now, in essence, businesses are hurting, and you guys got to listen, and in essence, not just blow it off and say, in essence, well, while the majority of the people want it. That is not going to cut it in Salida, because people rely on those streets. We pay taxpayers. The taxpayers pay on those streets. We have a right to those streets, and not, in essence, have people eating out. Who does that? That's disgusting, in essence, and in essence, because what about the elderly people? They count. I know the mayor has told them to stay home if they don't like it, but the thing of it is people need to be treated fairly in Salida. All business owners, in essence, and in essence, and I'm just ashamed and appalled at this administration. In essence, we've lived since Salida has become a city since 1980, and we've done very well with the streets open. I think you guys want to turn this into a Breckenridge or Leadville, and it's not. It is the city of Salida. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have anyone online?
No, but could I address one thing?
Yeah.
I just want to let the council know that the Salida Police Department have been going past the property that Mr. Martinez brought up and has been issuing notices for Ms. Edelman to clean up the property, and that is based on the last court ruling that we had. That is the extent of the authority the city has at this time.
Okay.
So it sounds like we're doing everything that we can
Yes,
as a
we are.
city. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Okay. We do have a proclamation this evening, and that is declaring June 25th, June 2025 LGBTQ plus Pride Month. Whereas the city of Salida supports the rights of every citizen to experience equality and freedom from discrimination. And whereas the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ plus communities contribute to the cultural, civic, and economic successes of our city. And whereas while we as a society at large are slowly embracing new definitions of sexuality and gender, we must also acknowledge that the need for education and awareness remains vital to end discrimination and prejudice. And whereas the city of Salida is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equality for LGBTQ plus people in our diverse community. And whereas this nation was founded on the principle that every individual has infinite dignity and worth, the Salida City Council calls upon the people of the city to embrace this principle and work to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists. And whereas celebrating Pride Month influences awareness and provides support and advocacy for Salida's LGBTQ plus community, and is an opportunity to take action and engage in dialogue to strengthen alliances, build acceptance, and advance equal rights. Now, therefore, the city of Salida does hereby proclaim June 2025 as LGBTQ plus Pride Month in the city of Salida. Thank you, everybody. And that takes us to unfinished business and action items. And the first is Ordinance 2025-06, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, correcting the description of Ward 3, excuse me, and updating the city ward boundaries. This is a second reading and a public hearing. I will hereby open the public hearing and ask staff to summarize their report.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. So ordinance 2025-06, it will correct the description of Ward 3 and update the ward boundaries. I'm just going to bring up. So the description where it needs to be corrected is it says, it formerly said that from North C Street heading east was in Ward 3. It's actually D Street, so that's what's being corrected there. Staff's recommending approval. I can answer any questions if you have, but I have one question of you. So with the map that I just showed, do you like that one or the old one? well, it won't come over here. So the old one had the whole shaded areas in there.
Right.
And with Jared redid it for me. And this actually has the addresses and just the outline. I didn't know if you'd prefer something different.
It's more readable,
Which one is?
this one,
Okay.
Okay.
without all the color. I do have a question, though. When, I was canvassing on C Street. Where did those people actually get to vote? A couple of elections ago.
In Ward 3.
Okay.
I believe it
So
was.
the mistake was thorough throughout.
Yes.
I believe 8 years ago, there was some reconfiguration, and at that point, the east side of D Street got moved out of Ward 2 into Ward 3, which is natural as we grow and the
Yeah.
population increases. It needs to be tweaked periodically.
Yeah, there's going to be a little movement.
Yeah.
And the one thing I found when putting all this information together is there are 10 to 12 annexations that have not been included in the map since 2021. So the numbers, the registered voter numbers will probably increase. So we may need to look at this again next year to see if we need to tweak the boundaries again.
And Ward 2 is a little bit challenged because it's,
Yeah.
on each side, it has another ward, so it's not going to grow much. So, yeah, I totally see the need for that.
So we'll see how that goes next year.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? And there is no applicant present. Is there anyone signed up for public comment? Okay, nobody signed up for public comment. No need for rebuttal. I'm going to go ahead and close public hearing, and that will lead us into preliminary council discussion. Who'd like to begin?
I'll make a motion.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 2025-06, correcting the description of Ward 3 and updating the city ward boundaries.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Fontana, seconded by Councilmember Martin. The motion is to approve ordinance 2025-06, correcting the description of Ward 3 and updating the city ward boundaries. Further discussion?
Critelli,
Yes.
Papenford,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Fontana,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
motion passed.
Okay, and on to new business, and the next item is elected official compensation.
Good evening, it's Amy Tahanovich. At least two council members asked for us to look into elected official compensation, which we have since done. And I wanted to remind council that the last time we did this was in August of 2023. We did change the compensation of the mayor and council members, and we increased the mayor to $1,000 from $650, and council members to $750 from the previous amount of $450. And people, the elected officials who were up in the next election in 2023, upon re-election or newly elected, received that compensation. We also, at that time, allow elected officials to participate in the city's health insurance plan on the same basis as employees. And so far, there are 5 of the elected officials that are paid on the new rates, and 3 of the 8 that we have are still paid on the old rates. And upon this next election, November 4th, those that are re-elected or newly elected will receive the higher benefit. We did look at this in the Finance Committee, and I have done a survey. I did not put the survey results in this because the CAF was due earlier, but basically, I did pull data from 30 municipalities, and of those municipalities, 30 of them responded on what they pay council members, and the average of those 30 were $798 a month. We're at $750 a month. So I think we're close to market. The mayor, only 10 responses for mayor is what I received, and the average pay for mayor of the 10 people, this is not scientific, these are just people who responded, or municipalities who responded, is 1,038 versus our 1,000. But where we are different is in the medical insurance benefit that we offer. Most municipalities do not offer that. In fact, of the 30 that responded, only Centennial and Brighton also offer similar benefit. After the Finance Committee looked at this information, the recommendation from the Finance Committee was to let's leave the rates as they currently are. But we wanted to bring it to the full council, obviously, and get your feedback. This will take an ordinance to change it. So we, rather than just, we need your direction on what to put in the ordinance. And roughly for every $100 increase that you provide, saying it's across the board for all 8 elected officials, it would cost about $9,600 annually for the city. And that, again, would be phased in based on when the elections are. So we are looking for your recommendation.
Great. So why don't we start with questions? Who would like to begin?
I'll begin, just because I was in the Finance Committee meeting. First of all, Amy did an excellent job of explaining all of this to us.
So is this more discussion than questions? Or?
Well, it was a question about the budget.
Okay.
She
okay.
did an excellent job of explaining this, and that this, I just wanted to have a question stated that I know the answer to, is that is this going to put a strain on the budget that we just passed this year, if this were to pass?
If we change it, it would, yes. Yes.
That's what.
But right now, we are anticipating that the new council member would come on, council members, 3 new elected officials, I should say, at the higher rates. So that is anticipated in the budget. And we are also anticipating conservatively that they will sign up for insurance. Average cost of the insurance benefit, by the way, is about $16,000 per year.
Per council member?
Per council member, and it varies quite a bit depending on whether a council member signs up for single coverage, family coverage,
Right.
spouse plus the council member.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks.
Yeah, that was my question.
Awesome. Other questions?
I got one
Yeah.
in the virtuosphere. Just a point of clarification, no council members that would be a part of the decision to increase those rates would be the beneficiary of that.
That is correct.
Okay, so it
Be
wouldn't
voting for the
be
next group.
right. It wouldn't be 8 increases
Right.
across the board if a
Right.
decision.
It would be phased in, which, overall, the impact for every $100 is $9,600, but it's phased in based on the election cycles.
And by law, you
Right.
can't vote in your own pay raise.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Just wanted that point to be known.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions before moving on to council discussion, which is, I'm sure, where the meat of this will probably occur? Okay, thank you. So that will take us to council discussion. Who would like to begin?
And Mr. Mayor, I could begin because I initially was the one who wanted this on.
Sure.
But I feel like I would want this to be discussed every 2 years, just to make sure we are keeping up with inflation, keeping up with other communities. I would like to see in the future like a list of like communities that we have reached out to that are like us, to make sure that we're kind of, if that makes sense. It just would have been nice to see actually see the list of communities reached out to and what they provide. As far as where we're at currently, just financially in the city, obviously, I think there is an optics to this that if we are, increasing the wages, that might not, or the fee, what we're paying, that might not look great. But at the same time, nobody sitting here will be voting for their own personal financial benefit. So it is a lot to think about. But I think that it is something that before an election, every 2 years, it should be looked at. So that's why I wanted it on the schedule. Thank you.
And I believe our finance director had a comment.
I was just going to say, we did not specifically reach out to any municipalities that were like us. I pulled the information from a CML survey that is done every year for council members, and I did ask a question on a CML listserv. That's where I got the data. So it's a real hodgepodge of municipalities.
Yeah.
Not all of them are like us at all. I will say some differences. Only one of the municipalities, the city and county of Broomfield, does look at a COLA, like an automatic increase, and how they have a real complicated formula. They look at it every 2 years based on the election cycle before the election, and they calculate the COLA based on an average over the last 2 years of what they gave the employees, and then they apply that to the next term. And some of the municipalities also give the mayor pro tem a little bit higher monthly pay. And a lot of them also only pay, and we don't have an attendance problem here, but only pay council members if they attend a meeting. So it's a per meeting rather than a per month
Oh, interesting.
charge. So
That
those
is
are the
interesting.
differences.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
appreciate the data. Did you? No, okay. Who would like to go next?
Yeah, I kind of see that at this moment, where we stand, with our budget, everything, yeah, of course, we'd all like, a little bit more money, but giving ourselves a pay raise at this time after, we're kind of in that, that no phase right now. It's really hard to give out money to people that come ask us for it. And I think giving ourselves, more money and a pay raise right now would be, definitely a little controversial. So, yeah,
Okay.
kind of.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I think it's reasonable to look at it every 2 years. This is the worst possible time with the new firehouse to increase the pay. But, I've been doing this for a long time, so I've gone from $148 as treasurer, up to the $450, been there, and I'm at the $750. So we've come a long way to normalize a stipend, which is basically what it is. Nobody's living on $750 a month, I guarantee you that. And so it is still a community service that we are doing. We're providing that service. And so I think that we are way better off than we used to be, because we're getting more than $148. Because there was a problem with the treasurer got left out one time when there was a raise. And so the council members were making $150, but the treasurer was making $148. Now, I was doing 2 roles, so I was getting almost $300, So I've been all over the place, and it's just been up, and I'm pretty comfortable with where we are, especially looking at where we've been.
Right, and the main discussion also in the finance committee meeting is that health insurance, how that health insurance adds quite a cost to each council. $16,647 average is quite a big chunk for the year of the city's budget per person. That this is not our main primary job, our primary income from here. It's more of a community service. So if you average 16,647, with the new council and the council coming up in November, that's a high price for the city to pay. So at this time, I'm still with the finance committee and not recommending it.
And I just had a couple of comments. First off, I have nothing but the utmost respect for everyone sitting up here. Really appreciate the service. And yeah, there's no question that we're doing this to provide a service. No one's up here doing it to get rich. And I think one of the things we really tried to do a few years ago is, so when I just turned 60, but the council that preceded me when I got on this, I would be the youngest member of that council. This council at age 60, I believe, I'm number 2. And I look on this dais and the people who are here virtually or not, and I love the age diversity. I think by raising to where we are right now, we've done a really good job of putting a more representative board up here, as opposed to having 7 retirees.
Fair.
And I think that's really important. With that said, I think we've solved for that, and I'm very comfortable with the idea of looking at this every 2 years. But I'm really grateful for what it's been brought up to, and I think, given the current circumstances, it would be a mistake to raise at this point. But I think we continue to have the conversation every 2 years. Okay. Anyone? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe it's unpopular opinion, maybe every 4 years, because that's the length of the terms, except for the mayor. All the other positions are every 4 years, 4-year terms. And I don't know when we went from that increase from Elisa, from like the 138 to 450, and then 450 to 750. I don't know when that first increase happened,
So
but.
it's 217, 21 was the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, yeah, we did just raise it in 2023. I do hear Councilmember Critelli's points, and I know him and I have talked about how it could be an barrier for those who want to get involved with this type of work. However, this is not our main source of income. We are here because we deeply care about our community, and you can't really put a price tag on that. And yeah, I also am comfortable with where we are at. I am one of those council members who receives the $450 a month with no health insurance, and I am comfortable with, I'm still here, comfortable with it, so.
And we're glad you're still here.
Yeah.
I know Treasurer Gilling was in the meeting, the finance. Do you have?
I think the members of council have done a really good job of summarizing, and yes, the committee's recommendation was to keep things where we are. So.
I do agree with Wales on the 4 years. I mean, Councilmember Martin, I think that for every 4 years is frequent enough.
And it would take a little burden off of staff, to.
Not have to look at it so often.
Right.
I agree with that.
And the fact that it's a 4-year term, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So just go with that.
I'd be okay with that.
Yes.
Anything else?
Second that, third that, fourth that.
So the way the motion is written kind of specifies amounts. My thought would be on the motion, given the fact,
It specifies.
It says
If no motion.
oh, I should read the italics.
It is smaller fonts.
My problem is I forget to scroll down.
Yeah.
no motion.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't even have to make a motion.
No, we're done with that.
Councilmember Critelli, what are your thoughts on the 4-year review?
I mean, I think that it's never going to be a decision that you made from this council that you're benefiting your own self with it. So the only reason why 2 years comes up is there's an election every 2 years. So therefore, I think it's fine, for whatever. I mean, if 4 years is fine too. I think it's good to kind of see the numbers and see that we're, compensating, or even above the average, with the fact that, not every municipality does the health insurance. It's good to see that. it's good to kind of represent that when you try to get community members involved, and pitch them the idea of, hey, there's a seat open, are you interested? It's really good to just say, hey, you know, I mean, we're not martyrs up here either. It's, you know, don't quit your day job, but also like providing benefit makes, you know, it just helps with that barrier of entry as we discussed. So it is good to just, even if it is just a revisiting, just to be like, hey guys, just so you remember, we're not volunteers, you know. I think it is like an important reminder, because that's the conversations I'm running into of just like, oh, I don't have any time to volunteer my time, and it's not quite that. So it does help with that conversation.
Would it be helpful on that point, you know, through our association with CAST, if maybe, you know, periodically we could reach out to them and do a survey? And those are, I mean, obviously some of the communities aren't apples to apples, but a lot are. And we could, you know, maybe scrub out the Aspens and the Tellurides and look at the communities that are more reflective of Salida.
I would support the 4-year review. It's less burden on staff. And if council chose to do that in a more frequent timeframe, they could always do that.
Yeah, they could always make a request and direct. Okay. Awesome.
Great.
All right. So no motion.
So scroll down.
Okay. I'm going to turn the page, actually.
Turn the page.
Okay. Actually, no, I'm not going to turn the page. I already had. Thank you, everybody. Thoughtful conversation. I appreciate it. Next up is Resolution 2025-21, a resolution of the City Council for the City of Salida, Colorado, amending the 2025 fee schedules.
Okay, we have a minor adjustment that needs to be made, or we're asking to be made to the fee schedule.
Better not involve compensation for council members.
You know, as you know, in February, we adopted a new fee schedule based on the recommendations by Eilers. And one of the goals of the fee schedule was to simplify the rates a little bit. We had looked at a schedule that showed what the new rates were like and the old rates. And, you know, the old rates had this monthly demand fee for commercial property, depending on how many gallons they use, in addition to a service charge, in addition to a tier 1 and tier 2 volume charge. Well, now we only have a service charge that is higher than what the old service charge was. And then we have 2 tiers for how much they get, depending on how much water they use, that go into effect based on the usage. And what we found out is that the service charge, you know, when you have usage, it kind of balances out and it isn't an astronomical fee increase. But if you just have a tap without any usage, which so far we've only found one business that this applies to, then because there's this monthly service charge that applies even without usage, then it's an unfair increase in cost. So what we're saying is if somebody brings it to our attention, because our system unfortunately can't automatically identify those, but, and we have looked for them, but if, you know, if somebody brings it to our attention that they have a tap and they don't have any usage and we can verify that, then our recommendation is that we would only charge the minimum amount for having an active tap, because there's some maintenance involved in that. And that would increase, for instance, a 4-inch service line from $650 a month down to $26 a month. And as I said, there's only one business that has been identified that saw that huge increase, and this would correct that impact.
I'm glad that you're keeping your eyes on things like this. Questions?
How long did this go on? Is it just recent?
Oh, yeah. You approved the fee change in February of this year, it took us a couple of months to implement the software, and part of the resolution was that we would have until, I think it was April 1st. So they've been billed 2 months.
Perfect.
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah, good catch.
Yep. I would take a motion if,
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 2025-21, amending the 2025 fee schedule.
Second.
so we have a motion from Councilmember Martin, seconded by Councilmember Pappenfort. The motion is to approve Resolution 2025-21, amending the 2025 fee schedule. Further discussion?
Stevens,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Fontana,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Critelli.
Yes.
Motion passed.
And that takes us, thank you, to Resolution 2025-22, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, finding the Granzella City of Salida annexation petition to be in substantial compliance with state statutes and setting a public hearing on said petition. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Kristen Hodges, City Planner. So tonight I have a couple of resolutions that should be pretty straightforward. The first one is the Granzella City of Salida annexation. This resolution of substantial compliance is the first step in the annexation process and sets the public hearing date for City Council action. The City of Salida is the property owner of 507 Scott Street, and Rusty and Tangi Granzella are the owners of 547 Scott Street. In combination, the properties have submitted a petition to annex the land totaling to 8.2 acres. The proposed annexation also includes a portion of Scott Street, which has already been dedicated to the city. Staff has found that the proposed annexation is in substantial compliance with the city and state statutes and recommends council adopt this resolution 2025-22 and set a public hearing date for July 15 of this year. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Yeah, one question.
Yeah.
About these, there's all these other little properties here, like on Illinois Avenue, like 430 or 1030, 1040, 649. Those are all still out, just kind of floating out there in the county, is that?
Correct.
They stay
All
out?
of the properties here shown in white are still within the county limits.
Is that, I just
It's
don't
like a
understand.
patchwork quilt.
Yeah, it's just a weird, like, those people that would, for those to, I guess they would have to annex themselves in, how would those be like get rid of that little weird little jaunt across down and around and get them into the city of Salida as well? Like, is that it's just weird having them out there, kind of out by themselves in the county, I guess.
I think it's,
Here
it's
comes
their,
Bill.
Here
it's-
it comes.
Yeah,
can't
whether
get
or
in.
not annexation is required, I'm going to rely
Yeah, I don't believe we
Bill
can force
Almquist
it.
for this
We don't
one.
force annexation.
Yeah, I mean, variety of options there. Assuming that the property has all the statutory standards or meets all the statutory standards, i.e. contiguity with the city limits and other requirements, then they could actually request to annex in on their own. They could potentially do it as a group, which actually would increase their contiguity. So they could come in each of those properties as one application. And in some cases, the city does choose to annex in properties that are unannexed to solve for a variety of issues that may present themselves when you have that patchwork quilt of annexed properties and non-annexed properties. So there's a variety of ways that they can come in.
Is there any way for them, I mean, they would have to do their own line, there's no way for them to tap into what we're doing here at the Granzella's properties to tap into the infrastructure of those properties we're
I mean,
developing?
it adds a lot of time to go out and see what other properties want to be a part of that annexation. And in this particular case, just given the history with it between the Granzellas and the city, with the purchase of tracks 3 and 4 and the desire to move forward with the RFQ, for instance, for a senior living project, we opted not to reach out to those individuals. But this annexation, should it be approved, would increase the contiguity for the majority of those other properties, so it would allow most of them to come in, if not all of them. We'd have to look and do the calculations to determine the specifics of that.
And would it be safe to say that a lot of times when people are annexing in, like for example on this property, you're not going to have a 48 or 40 unit LIHTC project on well water? You're going to need
Right.
to be able to tap in and have access to water and wastewater.
Yep.
And typically also the individual property owners will sign the annexation petition. So if they didn't want to, for whatever reason, it could be challenging.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Oh, great. Looks really straightforward. I mean, we're just following state statutes here, and this is one step in a multi-step process, so.
That's right.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 2025-22, declaring the Granzella City of Salida annexation is in substantial compliance with city ordinances and state statutes, and setting a public hearing for July 15th, 2025.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Martin, seconded by Councilmember Pappenfort, and the motion is to approve Resolution 2025-22, declaring the Granzella City of Salida annexation is in substantial compliance with city ordinances, excuse me, and state statutes, and setting a public hearing for July 15th, 2025. Further discussion?
Where am I at? Martin?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Critelli?
Yes.
Pappenfort?
Yes.
Fontana?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Great, and you don't have to go anywhere,
I'm just going to stay right here. We're actually going to do the same thing for a different property.
which is Resolution 2025-23, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, finding the Mesa Ridge annexation petition to be in substantial compliance with state statutes and setting a public hearing on said petition.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is another resolution of substantial compliance. Again, the first step in the annexation process, and sets the public hearing date for city council action. High Desert Development is represented by Kenny Layton as the applicant team, as the property owner, and has submitted a petition to annex a 2.3 acre property located on CR 160 between the Crestone Mesa subdivision, Cottonwood Green subdivision, and the hospital property. Staff has found that the proposed annexation is in substantial compliance with city and state statutes, and recommends council adopt resolution 2025-23 and set a public hearing date for July 15, 2025.
Questions?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 2025-23, declaring the Mesa Ridge annexation is in substantial compliance with city ordinances and state statutes, and setting a public hearing for July 15th, 2025.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Martin, seconded by Councilmember Fontana. The motion is to approve Resolution 2025-23, declaring the Mesa Ridge annexation is in substantial compliance with city ordinances and state statutes, and setting a public hearing for July 15th, 2025. Further discussion?
Stevens?
Yes.
Critelli?
Yes.
Fontana?
Yes.
Pappenfort?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, and then up next is Ordinance 2025-07, an emergency ordinance extending the temporary moratorium on the submission, acceptance, processing, and approval of applications for the establishment of a business that cultivates, processes, or dispenses natural medicine, and the establishment of any business occupation or operation for healing centers in the city of Salida, Colorado. This is an emergency ordinance, a final reading, and a public hearing. So I will go ahead and open up the public hearing and ask.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep going.
Oh,
Sorry.
it's okay. And just ask staff to summarize their report, which can happen whenever you're ready.
Yes, I will. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. So this is just a minor procedural request. As you know, there was a Proposition 122 that was signed by adopted by the voters, and then there was statutes clarifying it to allow the natural medicine establishments to operate within the state, and then the cities and towns can only regulate as it relates to time, place, and manner. staff and our office has been working to really get in feedback from you as city council, and then we went to planning commission work session, and then next week we're going to planning commission public hearing, and then we plan to come in front of you in July, the 2 July dates for an ordinance. But in the meantime, your moratorium will have expired. So we highly recommend that you extend it. It needs to be done by emergency ordinance due to the publication requirements, since your statutory city ordinances, if they take 2 readings and then 30 days. We just are asking for a very short time frame, again, to get this public input that we're having all these meetings and to really create the ordinance that will go in the code that is well thought out. So right now you had passed the moratorium. It would have expired in July, on July 6th. So we're just asking for a very brief, a little more than a month extension from that July 7th date to August 18th. And the August 18th date is if you pass an ordinance on the July 15th. We just did the math from when 30 days after publication. It would be the Friday after your that meeting. So we highly recommend this because if you don't pass it, then there might be inconsistencies in the regulations. Right now, there's no regulations in the code. So again, just asking for this month-and-a-half extension of the moratorium so that we could make everything clear in the code, and then everything is consistent and even keeled for anyone who might be establishing these businesses within the prescribed zone districts and other conditions that we're working through the ordinance. Let me know if you have any questions.
Questions, yeah.
I do. So I was reading the extending of the ordinance, the emergency moratorium here. Or the emergency ordinance, is anybody knocking at the door on this? I mean, are there people waiting in line to start?
Not that we've heard of, and even throughout the state, because it is actually very expensive, especially the therapy side is very expensive to get into with the licensing. So there's minimal risk, but there's some risk. You just want to be fair. So even with staff, like in other words, if somebody comes in and they're not under the regulations and now you have someone come in a month, it's very hard for staff. So that's why I would recommend, since you did do the moratorium, just to extend it for that month and a half. There's not like people beating down the door. It's more of a consistent enforcement, which ends up being really the burden on the staff. And I will say the attorneys to remember that everyone's under the code versus people who, if there was one person who came in that month and a half time frame, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I was just wondering if somebody was.
No. And all throughout the
waiting.
state, there's not, I mean, maybe some other, we haven't been hearing it because again, it's kind of expensive to get into with all the regulations on the state side that they have for what you need to do. But no, we're not hearing that. And if you did let this expire, it's typical businesses that need to follow the state law. This is just for, like I said, consistent enforcement. But to your practical question, no, we have not heard of that many. I don't know anyone asking about in Salida, but just throughout, the communities that we represent, we haven't heard.
So there's
really
no truth
much.
to the rumor that ACE is changing its name to Ace Hardware and Natural Medicine.
I'm not knocking at the door. I'm just saying. Nope. One-stop shopping.
That's funny. But I think it's
I've just heard generally from therapists that it's very hard to get to transition and to go through all the regulations. And then you have to find, even if you allow the zone in certain zone districts, there has to be an available lease, an available office, so just generally statewide, it's not, there hasn't been this like rush for this in terms of yeah.
Okay, so we understand that, nobody's really wanting this right now. Nevertheless, I think it's contingent on council to make moratoriums as short as they possibly can be.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, we need to do this.
Yeah, and it's only like 6 weeks more, again, and it's because of the process we went through, the public process, and then when your meetings fall. So we've already have the ordinance drafted. It's already been published in the we already gave it to Carolyn to publish in the packet tomorrow for Planning Commission, and then we've already, depending on what Planning Commission says, again, it's set for the July 1st and July 15th date. So everything is very tight. That's going to happen, and
We appreciate the thoughtfulness. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yes.
I would offer a motion.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I move to adopt emergency ordinance 2025-07 and emergency ordinance extending the temporary moratorium on the submission, acceptance, processing, and approval of applications for the establishment of a business that cultivates, processes, or dispenses natural medicine, and the establishment of any business, occupation, or operation for healing centers in the city of Salida, Colorado.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Pappenfort, seconded by Councilmember Fontana. The motion is to adopt emergency ordinance 2025-07, an emergency ordinance extending the temporary moratorium on the submission, acceptance, processing, and approval of applications for the establishment of a business that cultivates, processes, or dispenses natural medicine, and the establishment of any business, occupation, or operation for healing centers in the city of Salida, Colorado. Further discussion?
Critelli,
Yes.
Fontana,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
motion passed.
Great. And that
you.
brings us to item number 6 on the consent agenda, which we'll put here at the end of new business, and that's to approve a services agreement with Diesel and Structures for the construction of Cleora Park. Thanks, Diesel.
Yeah, sure. I had a much longer background written, so I'm glad you called me up. But what specifically would you like to know before I add my pieces?
I have three questions.
Okay.
So I don't want to take up everybody else's, but.
It's okay.
So when you say that the money's going to come out of the balance of the open space fees in lieu, that money's going to come out of there, that is already in the budget?
Yes.
And that was what we approved already that's what that's supposed to be used for? This is going to satisfy all of those requirements for the new development on that side of town for Two Rivers and the Cleora and Flour Mill, and there was another one, Magpie,
Confluence.
right?
Yeah. I think, and this is exactly what I want to talk about, among
Okay.
other things. First, I apologize. Staff has received, I should say staff requested bids, not has received. That appears that we received multiple bids. We did not. We received one qualifying bid for this project. So to answer your other questions, the open space fees, right? And I don't want this to sound like trying to hit a point home, but the ones that were waived last meeting, the 25,000, those get put in a separate fund. We have an other parks project fund. So it's not necessarily reserved for a specific project, but it's this other park projects fund. And that over time, that fund increases. It's the fund that we use to buy the land, the UP land across the river, to preserve all of that view shed and to keep it, it was a huge purchase. But over time, as developments come in and they have to pay fee in lieu either on top of unmet requirements for dedication and development, or, well, unmet requirements, either they don't do any park or they do an undersized park, the rest of the fee in lieu go into this fund. That fund is then used, like I said, view sheds, building parks. It is pretty specific what those fee in lieu funds can be used for, but it's primarily parkland development. So the PROST, you may remember, came to you in March of this year, and at a March 3rd work session discussed how they prioritize projects. And that was where outdoor soaking pools came off of the project priority list. The pool floor, natatorium floor, was bumped up to number 1. Cleora Park was number 2 in priority. I think a rough mower was number 2, and Cleora Park build out was number 3. So that's what the funds that they're referring to, like whatever we have either in capital improvement through the budget process that's been approved by council specifically, or these other park funds, things that have been promised to the community by you guys or staff or in some other way, a master plan, we slowly try to make these projects happen. So that fund right now is sufficient based on the bids that we got. In our initial research into this, the Prost asked that we go out to bid to see. Our original engineer's estimate for this project was $665,000. We knew we didn't have the funds to do that project, but we were encouraged to go out to bid anyway because it was becoming an urgent need. So we put an RFP out. We got one qualifying bid back that was under the engineer's estimate and within the budget of funds that we had. Now, do I wish those funds were more? Yes. Do I wish that we were collecting more fee in lieu? The 25K from last week, the randoms that we've kind of negotiated over the past 10 years, of course, we'd have, more funds there, but technically it fits. So, it makes sense as a priority for the community, as a priority for the Prost. They presented to you for feedback. It's under budget, within the budget for this, that we would move ahead with it. Now, speaking to this park in particular, this park is not sufficient to serve Two Rivers, Confluent Park, the Magpie, and the Flour Mill. And it started years ago with that pebble in the pond of the Van de Veer overlay and changing requirements in our own code and saying that because Don't Go Nuts was going to be an employment facility and therefore not required for parkland dedication, to take that requirement away, then have the land change hands and go from being a manufacturing facility to a community of 700 residents next to a community, Two Rivers, of 1,000 residents, and still having no requirement for parkland dedication put us at a total disadvantage. So then out of the goodness of the developer's heart, they dedicated 1.25 acres, which is severely undersized, just for Confluent Park, not including Two Rivers. And then we waived Flour Mill's dedication requirement. And now we had all of those residents and their use of this park, already undersized. And so with the dedication by the developer of the 2.5 acre park, which was not required by them, it was, we give you the land, the city now owns the land and is required for development of the park. Typically, developers are required to build the park. So we've sat on it for years, building up that fee in lieu fund, waiting for an opportunity. I did not think it would be this year, honestly. Looking at $650,000 and looking at our funds, I did not think it was going to be this year. Kind of worked out the way that it did, but I agree with you that, wow, this seems wild. And as I did the research and looked back at the Ordinance 2020, number 1, second reading and holding a public hearing regarding proposed amendments to the Van de Veer Ranch planned area development, that was the pebble whose ripple has led us to this 2,000 people neighborhood with a 1.25 acre park. Now, ideally, across the road and through another development, which has yet to be developed, which could be a Ramada Inn and a Chick-fil-A and a Burger King, there will be Van de Veer Ranch, the Van de Veer Regional Park. So a relatively large park, pretty close. But it's just a tale for all of us to just be like, wow, what we did 12 years ago, 15 years ago is like now we're kind of reaping that. And it was changing our own, adjusting, negotiating kind of our own set code. So does that?
That does. That leads me to my next question about maintenance.
Mm-hmm. It's all on us.
Yeah, that was my next question. So I know the city it's been out there that we have gotten behind on some maintenance of things. I want to make sure that I know that this is on us and you can't make sure of anything. I think this park is a wonderful idea. I think it's great. I love it. I very much support it. But it is going to require city staff maintenance once it is put in. Mm-hmm. And in that case, we need to make sure we don't get behind on more in debt on maintenance. So have you obviously figured in all the cost of maintenance and for however many years these equipment will last and such?
The Cartograph asset management software will help us do that. Generally, we can look at it as one of the reasons why I never recommend, or I'm always hesitant, and I've gotten to a place where I'm not just stubborn about it, but I'm hesitant to ever accept any park under 3 acres, is because of the cost to trailer a mower to go mow what in this park is going to be about 3/4 of an acre of grass, of actual grass. And so, like, you consider all these things when you're trying to encourage the planning commission or when you're working with developers about the concept of their development, is that, no, this is not worth it. A 1 acre park, as an example, like 1 acre park in Trailside Estates gets forgotten. And it is hard to maintain. And that's why we continue to negotiate as much as we can with planning, with developers, with community development to say, these have to be worth it to us, or we're gonna have as much money in trailer tires as we are in grass seed. So I understand, I don't have an exact number. This is a commitment that was made a while ago. We may have to make cuts in other departments if we continue to grow.
That was to me.
That was right.
That was to her.
That was to me.
No, we've been doing a lot lately in arts and parks and culture and to try to tighten the belt. Sometimes
Did you have another
it's
question?
hard.
No.
Member Fontana?
I think I'm good. I think I'm good, unless you want to say something.
I do not. I want you to.
Wet blanket. There you go.
It's such a positive meeting.
Yeah, I'm not going to pop the champagne right now. Anyone else have questions?
I had the same questions as Councilmember Fontana, so thank you for moving this down onto new business. I appreciate it.
Well, and I appreciate the local contractor bidding it. I think that's great. It keeps our money here. I know we're paying them. The city is moving money to them, and they will in turn hopefully spread that right to their employees, which hopefully stays here too.
Okay. Well, that would take us into discussion then, and maybe a motion.
I think somebody needs to make up a motion because.
Yeah, do we need to make up a motion?
We should, right?
Yes, you do. Yes,
So
you need
can we
to
go
approve
back
this.
to that?
I don't
we
have
just
it
had
on
on-
the calf.
It would be this.
Oh, this? Okay.
Yeah,
Number
yeah,
6.
Okay.
I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the services agreement with Diesel Structures for the construction of Cleora Park.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Pappenfort, seconded by Councilmember Fontana. The motion is to approve the services agreement with Diesel Structures for the construction of Cleora Park. Further discussion?
Fontana,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, and
Thank
we're
you.
on to council reports.
Thank you.
Councilmember Fontana, you're back
Oh.
on.
Oh, I have a report. Okay.
You do?
I do. I try to every week. Okay, so,
You come here every week?
every 2 weeks. I try to have one for everybody. So I actually reached out to a few of our local water river experts this week about the new boat ramp that we had talked a lot about 2 weeks ago. Not a week ago, 2 weeks ago. We definitely have a lot of experts, and they have a lot to say. They could talk all day on it, just depending on who you talk to. One of them was Ray Kitten, and we know he can talk, and Jerry Mallett, both of those two. To make it short from what they had said, they had convinced me very much of the support of the new boat ramp. Improvement to river access, improved parking, less congestion for launching and retrieving boats downtown, keeps people downtown safer while they're enjoying our river without cars, trucks, trailers, and everything trying to back down the boat ramp. So I appreciate staff doing that and moving forward with that. I think that's a great thing. Don't forget that the farmer's market opens this weekend. The music in the park, I love that too, starts Thursday, June 19th. I know the city staff works very hard on that, to put all that music in the park to get together. It's not just show up and listen to music. It's a lot of work, so I really appreciate that. I would like to say thank you to the Community Flag Program personnel. Talked about the flags on, I had started volunteering with this program last year. Paul Smith and team with the community center and another gentleman named Rick have really taken that up. They put all the flags out for six or seven holidays a year. Memorial Day was one of them. I feel like it's an honor and a tribute to our veterans. So if you would like to volunteer with them, they have 4 flag days left, and they are in need of some more volunteers. You get up, they design your route, put the flags out on Main Street and Highway 50, and then you take them down later in the afternoon. Usually you're only signed up for one shift. So that's Flag Day, June 14th, Independence Day, July 4th, Labor Day, September 1st, and Veterans Day, November 11th. So if you want any information about that, I can give it to you, or you can reach out to the community center. Let's see, lastly, don't forget to use the city golf course. I am there quite often. They're giving me reports every time I go. It's wonderful. Staff there is great, doing a great job. There's also a women's clinic that they are starting on Tuesdays. The first one was tonight. I didn't get to go to that one. Try for next week. Every Tuesday at the Salida Golf Course, and it's very, very inexpensive and relatively affordable for our community. So try to take advantage of that. And that's all.
Thanks. Councilmember Stevens.
No, nothing for me today. So I just do want to, congratulate Salida and myself. We'll both be turning 45 this year.
Lovely.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
45 years young, that is.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful.
I remember that.
Congratulations, me too.
Awesome. How do you top that, Councilmember Papenfort?
I'm going to say congratulations to the firehouse for the fabulous grand opening to the public. It was well attended. It was a lot of fun, but the early arrivers ate too many hot dogs because there was nothing left when I got there. But, it was great, and everybody really...
That wasn't supposed to be a hot dog eating contest?
I don't think so. No. But I think that's just a testament to how people really recognize the need for this, and they wanted to see it, and it is state of the art. And there was a fire chief from Leadville down to see it, and who knows how many other fire chiefs were mixed in the crowd that I didn't connect with. But it was just awesome. And, I was going to say what she already said, so I'm going to say it again anyway. And that is that the music starts at Riverside on Juneteenth. So be there or be square. That's all I got.
Thanks. Councilmember Curtelli.
I'll see you guys all in the flesh at FedBark. Can't wait.
All right.
Safe travels.
Thanks.
Councilmember Martin.
It's starting to get busy here in town, so just reminding everybody to just watch traffic, watch those stop signs and the yield signs. Our tourists don't always know which one is which, so just be extra careful when you're approaching them yourself. And I read recently about the Camp Out for a Cause event that's going to be happening. I read it in the paper, and I was curious if we will be getting more information on that from staff.
Yes, and you'll also be hopefully approving liquor license and road closure.
Okay.
As we get to the process.
Okay, great. Yeah, when I read it in the paper, I was like, well, what about the porta potties and cleanup? And that, just stuff like that.
They'll go through the same processes other events such as FIBART go through with us.
Okay.
And ensuring that we have the proper number of porta potties and security and all of that. So as the details come together, we'll have that information.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then I was curious for consent agendas. I've noticed a few times we have items on there that have a fiscal impact, and they often just get brought down if we do our homework and catch that there's a fiscal impact and ask for it to be moved down. And so I was curious if we could maybe, like, if there is a fiscal impact, if we could not have them in the consent agendas.
Yes, would just like some clarification.
Yeah.
The fiscal impact that everything on the consent agenda has been approved in the budget by council. So it isn't anything that's new to the budget.
Okay.
And which is why it has historically gone under the consent agenda, because there has already been some sort of discussion or process for a project. We could absolutely move it down. I just want to let you know that that is the reason, is because it is located in the budget. Anything that is not located in the budget, you usually don't see, because it usually doesn't get past Amy and I, but that would definitely be a cause for more conversation. So it's entirely up to the council, but that has been the historic process.
And I get the impression the treasurer wanted to chime in.
Yeah, Councilmember Martin, if there's a dollar amount that you think would be significant enough to have that action, I think that might be an interesting idea to consider also.
$1 is important enough to me.
Fair enough.
But
Do you want for any contract that we're signing, anything?
I was just curious if anybody else has thoughts about it too. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I've just noticed this trend, I guess, of council asking for it to be moved down. And so maybe there can be more clarification in the future. I just wanted to bring up this idea.
Perhaps there's information that could go in the council action form that if you feel like something's missing there.
We also could discuss it in the finance committee and maybe come back with a suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't burden staff so much.
My suggestion is to simply add an asterisk to the bottom of the consent agenda. Items that appear here were previously approved because they're already approved in the budget.
Yeah.
So we just need people to know that.
I like that idea, Councilmember Papenfort.
Creates transparency.
Yeah.
That's from being
Yeah, I
a
guess
financial administrator.
Yeah.
You know.
My hope is just transparency, right?
Yeah,
Just,
yeah.
That
And so
might-
just
that
a-
might
and I-
accomplish it.
Yeah, just an asterisk will take care of that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Okay.
We
Sounds
can
like there's
talk
agreement.
Talk about it at the finance committee, just
Great.
one
I
more
made
time.
that
Yeah, happy to add it to the agenda.
We can add that onto the agenda,
Okay.
the asterisk.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anything else?
And that is it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I just had a few things to echo Councilmember Papenfort's comments about the fire station. I thought it was a great event, and it really did bring out a lot of community, so it was really, really nice to see. And I really want to give a shout out to the veterans for showing up, and it was beautiful to see their ceremony, and just really grateful to them. Second thing, on that very same theme, they invited me out to their Memorial Day celebration at the Visitor Center in Poncha. And it was wonderful to be there. And I was also invited on the 14th for Flag Day. I think it's 10 in the morning at the American Legion Hut. They're going to be retiring some flags. So great group of people that have given so much to this community. I'm a little remiss because this is something I should have done before, but regarding farmers markets and council attendance. Last year, I believe we did it every other week. Quick sort of poll. I mean, what do people feel about for this year? I know some people have time constraints and schedule conflicts, but would people like to be in the park again this summer?
Since I work on Saturdays, I don't feel right sharing my thoughts on if council should be there or not.
Okay. I respect that.
Go ahead.
4 jobs is keeping me pretty busy. And so if I was to do it, I would want the every other week schedule, because I've done it a lot in the past, and most of the time you're just sitting there talking to each other.
Okay.
And I was in attendance quite a bit last year, just because I wasn't going anywhere. So staff was wonderful. Staff answered most of the questions. Council just kind of chatted, which is fine. How are you doing? That kind of stuff. Wasn't approached with anything that I thought was a big issue with that. Staff handled most of it, and I know they're burdened, and I know they have a lot of stuff to do. So I am with you. If we're going to do it, definitely every other week or less.
Okay.
Because I'm not trying to say that people didn't approach us. I just felt like it was more just to say hi. And maybe that's our job.
Maybe like the second week, because the first and third were here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we do it once a month and we do it the third week.
Yeah.
Second week?
And if we're on a schedule, well, I'm saying, yeah, that would be
Oh,
good.
the second.
Because then,
I just want to make sure. You
no,
said
thanks, I
first-
appreciate that.
Okay, yeah.
Because I say the one in between the meetings. So if there is a week where we could actually have a week off, I don't want to mess with that. I'd rather go in between the two meetings and go to once a month, because I think it's a heavy lift, especially for staff, like you really pointed out.
It's staff more than us.
I agree. Feel?
Yeah,
I mean,
I'd go to every other week. It's kind of awkward when I show up just as a person coming to enjoy the farmer's market and you guys are all standing over there and I feel like I should be with you or something.
How about
At least bringing us
Don't want you to
donuts.
feel awkward.
Councilmember Critelli, do you have any strong feelings on this?
I'm still inspired by our discussion about how much of an honor it is to be publicly facing and transparent and in the public. I feel like this is a good opportunity to do that. I'm always willing to go as much as, and if not to burden staff, I'm happy to pass on any notes that I get if staff has to miss. I never feel like they should feel obligated. But yeah, you know how I feel. It's an honor to be there.
Okay.
So I can create a doodle poll with every other week on there. And like we did last year, if no one can attend, that's okay. If it works for a council member to be there, then great, you can sign up. We usually do like to have a staff member there just to help answer questions, just so y'all don't feel like you're, put on the spot, because a lot of the questions are really detail oriented. So how about if I start with that? We will not be at the first one because I won't probably have a doodle poll together in time for that. So we just won't worry about this one and we'll go from there. But does that sound okay?
Sounds like a plan.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
And then I just had one last thing. I met with a group of short-term rental owners today. We had what I thought was a productive meeting. They would very much like to share some data that they have been diligently compiling, would like to come to a council work session, and so I'd like to direct staff. One thing based on the conversation today, that they would like to wait for is they're starting to hear anecdotally of a lot of people not renewing licenses this year, and with the 30th, I believe, is the last day. So maybe wait.
Last day we have to approve them.
To approve
They've already
it.
been-
So maybe wait until we have that data and then get them on an agenda and I can follow up with
June
them.
30th is too soon.
No.
June 30th is what we can plan for.
Yeah, we'll be through them by then.
We'll be ready by June 30th.
Okay,
Because everyone's already applied. The deadline
great.
was the end of May.
great. So maybe in July or something, like,
June 30th.
do we have a meeting that day? Oh, we do have a meeting that
Yeah.
day. Oh, okay.
I was wondering why you were saying that.
Sorry, June. Yes,
Okay.
July 1st is the first Tuesday, so we
Got it.
generally have the work session on the last
Oh,
day
okay.
of the month.
That makes
So,
sense.
Sorry.
You weren't being obtuse.
Sorry to continue to repeat June 30th and not make myself
Threw me
clear
for a
on why
minute.
I was saying.
Well, I'm not exactly quick on the uptake. I appreciate the repetition.
We have a few items on June 30th that have to do with housing in Salida, and our attorney will be present at that work session, so it would work out
Okay.
really well to have the right people in the room.
Great. And we can get that data to them.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. That's all that I have. Anything from our attorney this evening?
Thank you so much.
Okay, and then treasurer,
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
any department updates?
I think I'm done.
That all that remains would be a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, stick to that chair every time.
Keep saying June 30th until somebody acknowledges it. I'm saying June 30th.